Therefore, you have to then understand that in the context of Christ's redemptive work, occupying till he comes requires some training, requires that you use what you have, requires that you make some escape, requires that you are able to think creatively. There's something called developmental thinking, which I think is missing in church today. That a lot of us are just in church. Look, like a pastor used to say that the Muslims, remove their shoes when they're coming into the mosque, and then a lot of people remove their caps with their brain. They remove their brains with their cap when they come into church. So we don't do anything called critical thinking. And because of that, we are unable to essentially make the most of what God has given to us. Give me Colossians chapter 1, verses 19 and 20. We're going to read. Colossians 1, 19 and 20. I'm reading from New King James Version. For it pleased the Father that in him all the fullness should dwell, and by him to reconcile all things to himself, by him, whether things on earth or things in heaven, having made peace through the blood of his cross. I don't know if you have read this before. You may need to read it again. Having made peace through the blood of his cross, and by him reconcile what? How many things? All things. So tonight I'm going to try to show you a few things that will probably change your mindset, because we have always thought of redemption as being, God's price, Christ's death, paying for our sins to redeem mankind. And we don't understand that the entire world were reconciled to him in the mind of the Father. So that potentially what you only need to do is to introduce people to the understanding that someone has paid the price, you have been reconciled, the Father is not angry with you, and then they can come into him, receiving him, to appropriate what is already given to them. But he goes on to say, by him to reconcile all things to himself. So if he says all things, it means all of creation are partaker. They all partake in that redemption plan that God had. Because they fell also. They fell in the garden. Remember that? No, don't worry. I'll take you there. Did you remember when this man fell? When the first couple ate those fruit, what did God say? The ground is what? Cursed for your sake. And he said the ground is going to be yielding thorns and what? Thistles. And out of the brow of your face you're going to be eaten. So that creation became subject to bondage. Became subject to corruption. I will get there. And so all of creation, so all of creation, all humanity, everyone will all accept for that of humanity. But a lot of us do not even know that the mango trees also came under the curse. Everything, the yam, the potato, the plantains, everything came under the curse because they partook. Because there's a simple rule that was violated in the garden. And the rule that was violated is you cannot rule over creation without submission to the Creator. So once Adam declared independence away from God, he invariably submitted himself to the rule or to the resistance of creation. Okay, so let's say this. Do you know that when lawyers are writing this, the agreements, they say bearing, unforeseen circumstances or any act of God. Now, what they call the act of God is El Nino, is flood, is fire, is, all of these natural disasters. But I submit to you that they are not the acts of God. They are the acts of nature rebelling against humanity. Because we fail to submit to the one who gave us authority over them. Because authority flows from above. And once you don't submit to the man who gave you authority, then you lose your delegation power. You cannot be said to be a delegate if you are acting, if your action is antithetical to the man who delegated you. And so once man fell and we turned away from it, then invariably we submitted ourselves to that rule, and then we began to run at a loss. And so when Jesus came, he paid for everything. And I will show you that. Because if you can see that, your attitude to the things of this life will be different. You will approach it differently. You will make use of it to the glory of God. You will be able to do exploit. It's the reason that we have left everything out for the unbelievers. Because we don't understand this aspect of reconciling all things to himself. We don't understand that.